built wonders out of steel. Abandoned she was in a mill-weathered gray, where wind through the rafters did whistle and sway. The groan of the beams, the creak of the floor, became her kin and the song she bore. Her sister, sweet Hannah, with balm in her hands, did guard her against fate's unkind demands. Tick-tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen, and hammer keel, she builds wonders out of steel. But tread ye with care, beware her bright grin, for chaos lies close to the cogs within. The brave bear scars, the wise stay still, for folly comes swift, needs a match she's a will. One twist, one spark, oh do take thy chance. Broken, poisoned as she watched the trap dance. From pistons that chatter to engines that roar, to traps that do snap and power its store. Yet love, unspoken, lies soft in the hum of wheels that turn and machines that drum. Her fingers do weave through the sinew of brass, and secrets unravel Eureka at last. Tick-tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen, and hammer keel, she builds wonders of steel. She smiles so sly, with soot on her brow, a steam billow like a silken shroud. Come hither, come see, just a turn, just a twist, but fate oft respond with an iron fist. Yet still they follow despite the fray, for her craft lights paths where shadows stay. Her cradle's the mill where the great wind blow, where wooden gears and stone wheels groan. She dreams midst the clatter of ratchet and wheel, her lullaby sung by the hiss of steel. Though peril may dance under the timing clock, her heart ticks on like a golden watch. Tick-tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen, and hammer keel, she builds wonders out of steel. So lift thy cup to the clockwork wisp, with spirit so fierce and voice so crisp. For genius burneth where fools may flee, in gears, in steam, and machinery. Tick-tock, the echoes remain, a symphony wrought in brass and chain. Come hither, good travelers, and hark to my lay of a child born 'neath gears where shadows play. Samachi's her name, with fingers so slight, she builds by moon and toils by light. With brass in her heart and steel in her spine, she speaks in the tongue of the cog and the line. Tick-tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen, and hammer keel, she built wonders out of steel. Abandoned she was in a mill-weathered gray, where wind through the rafters did whistle and sway. The groan of the beams, the creak of the floor, became her kin and the song she bore. Her sister, sweet Hannah, with balm in her hands, did guard her against fate's unkind demands. Tick-tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen, and hammer keel, she builds wonders out of steel. But tread ye with care, beware her bright grin, for chaos lies close to the cogs within. The brave bear scars, the wise stay still. For folly comes swift, needs a match, she's a will. One twist, one spark, oh do take thy chance. Broken, poisoned as she watched the trap dance. From pistons that chatter to engines that roar, to traps that do snap and power its store. Yet love, unspoken, lies soft in the hum of wheels that turn and machines that drum. Her fingers do weave through the sinew of brass, and secrets unravel Eureka at last. Tick tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen and hammer keel, she builds wonders of steel. She smiles so sly, with soot on her brow, a steam billow like a silken shroud. Come hither, come see, just a turn, just a twist, but fate oft respond with an iron fist. Yet still they follow despite the fray, for her craft lights paths where shadows stay. Her cradle's the mill where the great wind blow, where wooden gears and stone wheels groan. She dreams midst the clatter of ratchet and wheel, her lullaby sung by the hiss of steel. Though peril may dance under the timing clock, her heart ticks on like a golden watch. Tick tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen and hammer keel, she built wonders out of steel. So lift thy cup to the clockwork wisp, with spirit so fierce and voice so crisp. For genius burneth where fools may flee, in gears, in steam and machinery. Tick tock, the echoes remain, a symphony wrought in brass and chain. Come hither, good travelers, and hark to my lay of a child born 'neath gears where shadows play. Samachi's her name, with fingers so slight. She builds by moon and toils by light. With brass in her heart and steel in her spine, she speaks in the tongue of the cog and the line. Tick tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen and hammer keel, she built wonders out of steel. Abandoned she was in a mill-weathered gray, where wind through the rafters did whistle and sway. The groan of the beams, the creak of the floor, became her kin and the song she bore. Her sister, sweet Hannah, with balm in her hands, did guard her against fate's unkind demands. Tick tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen and hammer keel, she builds wonders out of steel. But tread ye with care, beware her bright grin, for chaos lies close to the cogs within. The brave bear scars, the wise stay still, for folly comes swift, needs a match, she's a will. One twist, one spark, oh do take thy chance. Broken, poisoned as she watched the trap dance. From pistons that chatter to engines that roar, to traps that do snap and power its store. Yet love, unspoken, lies soft in the hum of wheels that turn and machines that drum. Her fingers do weave through the sinew of brass, and secrets unravel Eureka at last. Tick tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen and hammer keel, she builds wonders soot on her brow, a steam billow like a silken shroud. Come hither, come see, just a turn, just a twist, but fate oft respond with an iron fist. Yet still they follow despite the fray, for her craft lights paths where shadows stay. Her cradle's the mill where the great wind blow, where wooden gears and stone wheels groan. She dreams midst the clatter of ratchet and wheel, her lullaby sung by the hiss of steel. Though peril may dance under the timing clock, her heart ticks on like a golden watch. Tick-tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner keen and hammer keel, she builds wonders out of steel. So lift thy cup to the clockwork wisp, with spirit so fierce and voice so crisp. For genius burneth where fools may flee, in gears, in steam and machinery. Tick-tock, the echoes remain, a symphony wrought in brass and chain. Come hither, good travelers, and hark to my lay of a child born neath gears where shadows play. Samachi's her name, with fingers so slight, she builds by moon and toils by light. With brass in her heart and steel in her spine, she speaks in the tongue of the cog and the line. Tick-tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner keen and hammer keel, she builds wonders out of steel. Abandoned she was in a mill-weathered gray, where wind through the rafters did whistle and sway. The groan of the beams, the creak of the floor, became her kin and the song she bore. Her sister, sweet Tana, with balm in her hands, did guard her against fate's unkind demands. Tick-tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner keen and hammer keel, she builds wonders out of steel. But tread ye with care, beware her bright grin, for chaos lies close to the cogs within. The brave bear scars, the wise stay still, for folly comes swift, needs a match she's a will. One twist, one spark, oh do take thy chance. Broken, poisoned as she watched the trap dance. From pistons that chatter to engines that roar, to traps that do snap and power its store. Yet love, unspoken, lies soft in the hum of wheels that turn and machines that drum. Her fingers do weave through the sinew of brass, and secrets unravel Eureka at last. Tick-tock, the gears do chime, a song spun through wheels of time. With spanner keen and hammer keel, she builds wonders of steel. She smiles so sly, with soot on her brow, a steam billow like a silken shroud. Come hither, come see, just a turn, just a twist, but fate oft respond with an iron fist. Yet still they follow despite the fray, for her craft lights paths where shadows stay. Her cradle's the mill where the great wind blow, where wooden gears and stone wheels groan. She dreams midst the clatter of ratchet and wheel, her lullaby sung by the hiss of steel. Though peril may dance under the timing clock, her heart ticks on like a golden watch. Tick-tock, the gears do chime, A song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen, and hammer keel, she built wonders out of steel. So lift thy cup to the clockwork wisp, with spirit so fierce and voice so crisp. For genius burneth where fools may flee, in gears, in steam, and machinery. Tick-tock, the echoes remain, a symphony wrought in brass and chain. Come hither, good travelers, and hark to my lay of a child born 'neath gears where shadows play. Samachi's her name, with fingers so slight. She builds by moon and toils by light. With brass in her heart and steel in her spine, she speaks in
Why
the
they
tongue
keep
of
dropping
the
it?
cog and the line. Tick-tock, the gears do chime. A song spun through
Pick the
wheels
fucking
of
thing up
time.
already.
With spanner, keen, and hammer keel, she built wonders out of steel.
Jesus fuck.
Abandoned she was in a mill-weathered gray, where wind through the rafters did whistle and sway. The groan of the beams, the creak of the floor, became her kin and the song she bore.
It dropped
Her
it again.
sister, sweet Hannah, with balm in her hands, did guard her against fate's
Stop
unkind
dropping it.
demands. Tick-tock, the gears do chime. A song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen, and hammer keel, she builds wonders out of steel. But tread ye with care, beware her bright grin, for chaos lies close to the cogs within. The brave bear scars, the wise stay still, for folly comes swift, needs a match she's will. One twist, one spark, oh do take thy chance. Broken, poisoned as she watched the trap dance. From pistons that chatter to engines that roar, to traps that do snap and power its store. Yet love, unspoken, lies soft in the hum of wheels that turn and machines that drum. Her fingers do weave through the sinew of brass, and secrets unravel Eureka at last. Tick-tock, the gears do chime. A song spun through wheels of time. With spanner, keen, and hammer keel, she builds wonders of steel. She smiles so sly, with soot on her brow, a steam billow like a silken shroud. Come hither, come see, just a turn, just a twist, but fate oft respond with an iron fist. Yet still they follow despite the fray, for her craft lights paths where shadows stay. Her cradle's the mill where the great wind blow, where wooden gears and stone wheels groan. She dreams midst the clatter of ratchet and wheel, her lullaby sung by the hiss of steel. Though peril may dance under the timing clock, her heart ticks on.
So why use Grammarly over?
So I didn't store it. I think I didn't. Is it possible if I just didn't store it? No, I need to craft the initial one. Yes. Yeah, I forgot to craft the initial one. Because I have the lances and the amplifiers, I just forgot to craft the initial one that needs to be upgraded. Sucks hard though. That's why I never seen it here, because it never popped up. Yeah, once this is done, I should have at least loaded both of them. Yeah, I'm loaded. I should go now, right? Unlikely I'm gonna use up all my ammo. Diamond, diamond, diamond. Need one of these. I need to start killing off the useless guys.
I hear the hum behind the plaster. Drills and hammers echo faster. Concrete walls, but they betray a life inside that works all day. Tiny steps.
Wish I could just throw them off the cliff or something. Wait, I can do that.
Steel-toed boots on paws so small, building empires in my walls. What are you
Well, not really, but there is a way. Yeah, but it's very finicky. It's
jackhammers at the break of dawn? I swear I heard a saw turned on. Pipes that rattle, sparks that fly. A welding arc.
fine with food. I'm perfectly fine with food.
Wall, she taps it back. Blueprints drawn on painted wax. A kingdom grows
One of these, just one is enough.
deep in Reba stone. Almost. What are you making? The ground below is quaking. I leave you crumbs and cheese.
Shit.
But all I get's the fading sight of you. Almost. Do you hear me when I call? Do you dream beyond this wall? I don't know what you're up to, but I hope you know I trust you. Nuts and
With these guys, we are like Canaria, like maybe if I tell them that only he can construct, I could just dump them.
what are you making? The ground below is quaking.
Yeah, that would be an option. So I wanna take out the second and 3 after the second.
Work away, my tiny friend. Your project knows no end. I'll keep the snacks beside the door and hope to see you just once more.
So I want him. Also. Okay, right. After the red one.
Come closer, my friends, and still your feet.
I can dump
Fire burns low,
big bunch of them.
night
Okay.
grows sweet. I'll tell you of Tana, a tale wrapped in pity, of powders and tinctures and a changeling so pretty. A
That's 6
story
units.
of exile, a prince and his groom.
I can
a
replenish
crown passed
2
down, stolen and
plus
doomed.
3, that's 5. And it's still not over. So probably I can do 6.
And loss and exile stings with tincture and potions with
So that's
poison
3,
and oil. A master
that's
of
6.
witchcraft, a fate she would boil. A plan she laid out to leave no one left. She dances twixt life and the whisper of death.
So technically I can so only they would construct, right?
With gears and glass, they made their keep. With clinking betwixt life and the whisper of death.
I need to get these guys. Oh shit, forgot about the one.
Silent halls where no one knows. A drop of death, a drought of pain, a hex to bind for stolen rain. She dreams of thrones and power undone, a reckoning wrought 'neath a rising sun. Oh, drink the flask, for flesh it heal, for
For now,
nothing mends what they steal.
human.
Their plan to
Oh,
banish
I want him to get the fuck out of here.
poison will fix her
Human.
wheel.
Bird. Yeah, I don't need that either. Bird. Human. Bird. I just need you to fuck off.
So raise a cup to those that know the witch of the mill whose brewer glows. The
I don't
strings
wanna lose a triple influence.
unseen, her vengeance will
Fourth from the last.
swift and keen. Goodbye, my friends, the night has come.
You're yellow, right?
Drink
Yeah.
and be merry, it's poison you chug.
Yeah, now dump a whole bunch. Bye bye. Okay, and now I can make units.
Looks like you're on YouTube watching a musician doing
One
it.
is enough, right?
But did you know there's a YouTube music app that does it all with ad-free listening and song downloads?
Yeah, there's
and
absolutely
background play
nothing
and
else I
more?
need.
Whew, that's
No,
cool.
I need two.
Get YouTube Music Premium.
13 shots on the. Oh, I'm burning through my diamond quite terrible. Get the third one. No, not really. Should-
Screaming down through the gates, watch the nights of the light as it smothers the sea. I can tell by the moon you'll be joining me soon as a guest in my fortress of fun. And I can't wait to see you and once again free you, release from
That
your
was went exactly how I was expecting it to
Someday
go.
I will replace that big frown on your face with a smile and a murderous glare. We are two of a kind, violent, unsound of mind. You're the yin to my yang, can't you see? And if I were to leave, you would crumble in grief. Face it, bats, you'd be lost
And I
without
keep this.
me.
Huh?
You'd be lost. You'd be lost. Face it, bats, you'd be lost without me. I'm just trying to show you just how well I know you. I understand just how you feel. Through your reason, no way, 'cause you had one bad day and your mind let go of the wheel. Still we're fated to battle, you pout and I prattle. Don't you ever tire of this game? But you'll not make it end, 'cause I'm your only friend. We are opposites, but we're the same. We are two of a kind, violent, unsound of mind. You're the yin to my yang, can't you see? And if I were to leave, you would grumble and grieve. Face it, bats, you'd be lost without me. You'd be lost, you'd be lost. Face it, bats, you'd be lost without me. We have so many wonderful stories. I have studied the mind of this bat. A hero with no praise or glory, just his cape and his cave and his We are two of a kind, violent, unsound of mind. You're the yin to my yang, can't you see? And if I were to leave, you would grumble and grieve. Face it, bats, you'd be lost without
Oh, it got damaged. What the hell?
You'd be lost. You'd be lost. You'd be lost. Face it, bats, you'd be lost without me.
Her eyes ignite like the rising sun.
Have the Yeah, I have it.
A sorceress
Have enough
born
sparkle.
second to
Oh.
none. Black and gold, her scales burn bright. A queen of fire, the heart of night. Her power surges, a storm untamed. A force of will no foe can claim. But when she speaks, her words ensnare. A blazing beauty beyond compare. Oh, my dragonborn queen, mistress of flame, a sorceress bold, none can contain. Through fire and shadow, our hearts conspire. She's my black and gold love, my burning desire. Her magic dances like a dragon's breath. A fiery force defying death. Her golden light through the darkness tears. Her strength a fortress, her love repairs. Oh, my dragonborn queen, mistress of flame, a sorceress.
My head can't take the sound. Too loud.
Saturday morning comes and goes without too much on my mind. Except maybe lunch. A walk down to the shops just to move. Feel a bit rough from last night. I may have drunk a bit too much. A lady in the supermarket approaches way too fast. And her eyes are intense and she spits a little bit when she asks, where do you keep the pasta? I don't know, aisle 3. Well, can you get it for me? I just want a Gatorade, but she rolls her eyes so I kind of lose it. Hey, I don't work here, and if I did, I would not sell you shit. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. That way I could hide all of the things you want from you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, would I be wearing a dirty white singlet, you fool? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. Silly me, I've had the master all along. Fuck you. Saturday ever comes and goes and I'm feeling pretty great. I met a middle-aged woman cry today. Walking on the hot sand of Bondi Beach, I take a rest in the lifeguard tower shade. My foresight readies me for melee. A man runs from the surf and approaches way too fast. With a blue bottle across his chest, he shakes me as he asks, you gotta save my kid. I can't really swim. What kind of lifeguard are you then? I'm just here to take a nap, but he rolls his eyes so I kind of snap. Hey, I don't work here, and if I did, I would not save your kid. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. That way I could help relieve that nasty sting for you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, would I make a race car out of sand and fall asleep? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. Should do what? Save my son? No, get a job. What about my son? He's drowning. Your son's fine. He just swims weird. You shouldn't hold that against him. Oh my god, thank you. I can't begin to... He's gone. Saturday night comes and goes without too much on my mind. just kicking a ball down the street. I give it too much juice and it flies over the fence of my local NASA compound. Just bear with me. Guards are all passed out, it seems there's been a planned attack. The alarm is blaring loud, but I'm the only one intact. I try to phone for help, but unfortunately, there's an alien transmitting itself to NASA screens specifically.
Give us your planet.
Okay, let me find someone, alright? Just relax.
Give us your planet.
I said, okay, we're under attack.
Give us your planet.
Okay, I don't have the authority to do that. I just came to get my ball, but it's been a long day, so I speak for us all. Ladies and gentlemen, we are reporting live across the globe alarming news as extraterrestrial life has issued a statement of war to planet Earth. The alien transmission technology has left all but one individual incapacitated within the transmission receiving point, a NASA space compound located in Sydney, Australia. The time has come and humankind can do nothing more than pray and watch on as the diplomat for planet Earth responds with what we can only imagine as an articulate plea for peace and mercy. Hey, I don't work here, and if I did, I would not surrender shit. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. That way I can take a trip to Mars and strangle you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, do you think the president of Earth is a fucking mullet? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. That way I can put my planetary fist in use. That way I can teach you kids to drown in front of you. That way I can hide all of the liquidity from you. Saturday morning comes and goes without too much on my mind. Said maybe lunch, or walk down to the shops just to move. Feel a bit rough from last night. I may have drunk a bit too much. A lady in the supermarket approaches way too fast, and her eyes are intense and she spits a little bit when she asks, "Where do you keep the pasta?" I don't know, aisle 3. Well, can you get it for me? I just want a Gatorade, but she rolls her eyes, so I kind of lose it. Hey, I don't work here, and if I did, I would not sell you shit. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. That way I can hide all of the things you want from you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, would I be wearing a dirty white singlet, you fool? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. Silly me, I've had the master all along for you. Saturday ever comes and goes and I'm feeling pretty great. I met a middle-aged woman cry today. Walking on the hot sand of Bondi Beach, I take a rest in the lifeguard tower shade. My foresight readies me for melee. A man runs from the surf and approaches way too fast. With a blue bottle across his chest, he shakes me as he asks, "You gotta save my kid." I can't really swim. What kind of lifeguard are you then? I'm just here to take a nap, but he rolls his eyes, so I kind of snap. Hey, I don't work here, and if I did, I would not save your kid. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. That way I could help relieve that nasty sting for you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, would I make a race car out of sand then fall asleep? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. Maybe I should. Maybe I should. Should do what? Save my son? No, get a job. What about my son? He's drowning. Your son's fine. He just swims weird. You shouldn't hold that against him. Oh my God, thank you. I can't begin to... He's gone. Saturday night comes and goes without too much on my mind. Just kicking a ball down the street. I I give it too much juice and it flies over the fence of my local NASA compound. Just bear with me. Guards are all passed out, it seems there's been a planned attack. The alarm is blaring loud, but I'm the only one intact. I try to phone for help, but unfortunately, there's an alien transmitting itself to NASA screens specifically.
Give us your planet.
Okay, let me find someone, alright? Just relax.
Give us your planet.
I said, okay, like under attack.
Give us your planet.
Okay, I don't have the authority to do that. I just came to get my ball, but it's been a long day, so I speak for us all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are reporting live across the globe alarming news as extraterrestrial life has issued a statement of war to planet Earth. The alien transmission technology has left all but one individual incapacitated within the transmission receiving point, a NASA space compound located in Sydney, Australia. The time has come and humankind can do nothing more than pray and watch on as the diplomat for planet Earth responds with what we can only imagine as an articulate plea for peace and mercy.
Hey, I don't work here, and if I did, I would not surrender shit. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. No way I can take a trip to Mars and strangle you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, do you think the president of Earth is a fucking mullet? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. No way I can put my planetary fist in you. No way I can teach a kid to drown in front of you. No way I can hide all of the liquidity from you. Saturday morning comes and goes without too much on my mind. Except maybe lunch. A walk down to the shops just to move, feel a bit rough from last night. I may have drunk a bit too much. A lady in the supermarket approaches way too fast, and her eyes are intense and she spits a little bit when she asks, "Where do you keep the pasta?" "I don't know, aisle 3. "Well, can you get it for me?" "I just want a Gatorade," but she rolls her eyes, so I kind of lose it. Hey, I don't work here, and if I did, I would not sell you shit. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. No way I could hide all of the things you want from you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, would I be wearing a dirty white singlet, you fool? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. Silly me, I've had the master all along. Fuck you. Saturday hour comes and goes and I'm feeling pretty great. I met a middle-aged woman cry today. Walking on the hot sand of Bondi Beach, I take a rest in the lifeguard tower shade. My foresight readies me for melee. A man runs from the surf and approaches way too fast. With a blue bottle across his chest, he shakes me as he asks, "You gotta save my kid." I can't really swim. "What kind of lifeguard are you then?" "I'm just here to take a nap," but he rolls his eyes, so I kind of snap. Hey, I don't work here, and if I did, I would not save your kid. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. No way I could help relieve that nasty sting for you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, would I make a race car out of sand and fall asleep? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. Maybe I should. Maybe I should. Should do what? Save my son? No, get a job. What about my son? He's drowning. Your son's fine. He just swims weird. You shouldn't hold that against him. Oh my God, thank you. I can't begin to... He's gone. Saturday night comes and goes without too much on my mind. Just kicking a ball down the street. I Give it too much juice and it flies over the fence of my local NASA compound. Just bear with me. Guards are all passed out, it seems there's been a planned attack. The alarm is blaring loud, but I'm the only one intact. I try to phone for help, but unfortunately, there's an alien transmitting itself to NASA screens specifically.
Give us your planet.
Okay, let me find someone, alright? Just relax.
Give us your planet.
I said, okay, like under attack.
Give us your planet.
Okay, I don't have the authority to do that. I just came to get my ball, but it's been a long day, so I speak for us all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are reporting live across the globe alarming news as extraterrestrial life has issued a statement of war to planet Earth. The alien transmission technology has left all but one individual incapacitated within the transmission receiving point, a NASA space compound located in Sydney, Australia. The time has come and humankind can do nothing more than pray and watch on as the diplomat for planet Earth responds with what we can only imagine as an articulate plea for peace and mercy.
Hey, I don't work here. If I did, I would not surrender shit. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. No way I could take a trip to Mars and strangle you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, do you think the president of Earth has a fucking mullet? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. No way I could put my planetary fist in you. No way I could teach a kid to drown in front of you. No way I could hide all of the liquidity from you. Saturday morning comes and goes without too much on my mind. Except maybe lunch. A walk down to the shops, just a move. Feel a bit rough from last night. I may have drunk a bit too much. A lady in the supermarket approaches way too fast, and her eyes are intense and she spits a little bit when she asks, "Where do you keep the pasta?" I don't know, aisle 3. Well, can you get it for me? I just want a Gatorade, but she rolls her eyes, so I kind of lose it. Hey, I don't work here, and if I did, I would not sell you shit. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. No way I could hide all of the things you want from you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, would I be wearing a dirty white singlet, you fool? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. Silly me, I've had the master all along. Fuck you. Saturday over comes and goes and I'm feeling pretty great. I met a middle-aged woman cry today. Walking on the hot sand of Bondi Beach, I take a rest in the lifeguard tower shade. My foresight readies me for melee. A man runs from the surf and approaches way too fast. With a blue bottle across his chest, he shakes me as he asks, "You gotta save my kid." I can't really swim. What kind of lifeguard are you then? I'm just here to take a nap, but he rolls his eyes, so I kind of snap. Hey, I don't work here, and if I did, I would not save your kid. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. No way I could help relieve that nasty sting for you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, would I make a race car out of sand and fall asleep? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. Maybe I should. Maybe I should. Should do what? Save my son? No, get a job. What about my son? He's drowning. Your son's fine. He just swims weird. And you shouldn't hold that against him. Oh my God, thank you. I can't begin to... He's gone. Saturday night comes and goes without too much on my mind. Just kicking a ball down the street. I give it too much juice and it flies over the fence streets of my local NASA compound. Just bear with me. Guards are all passed out, it seems there's been a planned attack. The alarm is blaring loud, but I'm the only one intact. I try to phone for help, but unfortunately, there's an alien transmitting itself to NASA screens specifically.
Give us your planet.
Okay, I don't know. Let me find someone, alright? Just relax.
Give us your planet.
I said, okay, like under attack.
Give us your planet.
Okay, I don't have the authority to do that. I just came to get my ball, but it's been a long day, so I speak for us all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are reporting live across the globe alarming news as extraterrestrial life has issued a statement of war to planet Earth. The alien transmission technology has left all but one individual incapacitated within the transmission receiving point, a NASA space compound located in Sydney, Australia. The time has come and humankind can do nothing more than pray and watch on as the diplomat for planet Earth responds with what we can only imagine as an articulate plea for peace and mercy.
I don't work here, and if I did, I would not surrender shit. Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. No way I could take a trip to Mars and strangle you. Hey, I don't work here, but if I did, do you think the president of Earth has a fucking mullet? Hey, I don't work here, but maybe I should. No way I could put my planetary fist in use. No way I could teach a kid to drown in front of you. No way I could hide all of the liquidity from you.
I think if any diamond more.
Saturday morning comes and goes without too much on my mind. Said maybe lunch. I walk down to the shops just to move. Feel a bit rough from last night. I may have drunk a bit too much. A lady in the supermarket approaches way too fast, and her eyes are intense, and she spits a little bit when she asks, "Where do you keep the pasta?" I don't know, aisle 3. Well, can you get it for me? I just want a Gatorade, but she rolls her eyes. I hear her laugh as I race through the trees, a haunting echo riding the breeze. Her shadows loom, her steps draw near. With every glance, I'm caught in fear. Claws and fangs, I'm out of breath, running from danger or courting my death. Each step I take, she's closing in. Fiendish wiles behind a devilish grin. Filled with past scales that shine, her reptilian eyes locked onto mine. From the trees above, wings spread wide. How am I supposed to hide? Claws and fangs, I'm out of breath, running from danger or courting my death. Each step I take, she's closing in. Fiendish wiles behind a devilish grin. Web of silk pulls me to the ground. Her laughter rings a haunting sound. Her siren song, a melody sweet. With every step I see defeat. I'm on my knees, no fight to give. She circles close, but I want to live. Yet in her gaze I saw something more.
Did I dump the title? So we should.
I hear her laugh as I race through the trees, a haunting echo riding the breeze. Her shadows loom, her steps draw near. With every glance, I'm caught in fear. Claws and fangs, I'm out of breath, running from danger or courting my death. Each step I take, she's closing.
It's a massive undertaking.
Wiles behind a devilish grin.
Should put it here.
Filled with past scales that shine, her reptilian eyes locked onto mine. From the trees above, wings spread wide. How am I supposed to hide? Claws and fangs, I'm out of breath, running from danger or courting my death. Each step I take, she's closing in. Fiendish wiles behind a devilish grin. Web of silk pulls me to the ground. Her laughter rings, a haunting sound. Her siren song, a melody sweet. With every step I see defeat. I'm on my knees, no fight to give. She circles close, but I want to live. Yet in her gaze I saw something more, a wild beauty I couldn't ignore. Claws and fangs, I'm out of breath, running from danger or courting my death. Each step I take, she's closing in. Fiendish wiles behind a devilish grin. So here I stand, I cannot flee. Her wicked smile has captured me. She's claimed my heart, it's plain to see. A monster's love left her mark on me. I hear her laugh as I race through the trees, a haunting echo riding the breeze. Her shadows loom, her steps draw near. With every glance, I'm caught in fear. Claws and fangs, I'm out of breath, running from danger or courting my death. Each step I take, she's closing in. Fiendish wiles behind a devilish grin.
Gonna be interesting.
Scales that shine, her reptilian eyes locked onto mine. From the trees above, wings spread wide. How am I supposed to hide? Claws and fangs, I'm out of breath, running from danger or courting my death. Each step I take, she's closing in. Fiendish wiles.
I could have 3 of these here. And a bunch of hook here.
Web of silk pulls me to the ground. Her laughter rings, a haunting sound. Her siren song, a melody sweet. With every step I see defeat. I'm on my knees, no fight to give. She circles close,
put this here. It's here. Originally there was house in these two in there. I could make another one. I don't technically need titanium for anything really. Let's stick to what we need. Technically it's fine. Swap to titanium with everyone. Actually, do I turn this off, turn this on? I don't need it just yet. We only do it below. How did I imagine this? Definitely, this is 100% sure. Right? Yeah, so the double energy becomes here. Guess you can do this. Put two cooking here. This would only work like this. So that's 3 cooking plus that one here. Two here. One here. Yeah, that's like so. True production here. I can just keep going up. And here it's gonna be just food storage. Pretty much. Yeah. Can also do this to increase food product in storage area, like so. No, I can't, I need the ladder here. So it can be only like this. Means I cannot have this here. It's gonna be a self-contained stuff. Oh, they cannot reach it. They likely cannot reach it. Really? Come on now. on doing it. Out of powder. I have one more. Can blow one more up. I guess this is if it does any right. Yeah, I'll keep it. Although I wanna get rid of it. Yeah, this is a perfect place. Why don't they build the shit up already? Oh, because they need to reach that far. Okay. Stuff just keeps falling down. Don't even need to do that. Have to demolish this. He's up. Wow. Probably never at reproduction, guys. You shouldn't have it. Huh?
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to the Sabbat World's Crusade in the year 775. As we now need to take a little bit of a step back in time. As last time we talked about Balhut and a blood-packed group hunting down a Sons of Sek traitor, and the ambitious plan that was spawned from the successful recapture and interrogation of said traitor. But we now need to investigate why a crazy, ambitious plan was necessary in the first place. After the War Master's long-awaited success against the fortress world of Morland, and the subsequent reorganization of the Imperial Crusade, giving himself some 70% of the total military might of the Crusade, War Master Makaroth decided to drive onwards as speedily and with as much force as he could conceivably muster, hoping to not give the enemy any opportunity to rally or ready another defensive line. This was pretty characteristic for Makaroth at that point, but many of his generals were really starting to get fed up with his headstrong attitude, particularly the commanders on the Corward Assault Front, or the Second Front, who were now expected to keep up with Makaroth's advances, meaning that they had to occupy the territory that he conquered whilst having access to far fewer military resources, and also fighting Anaquanar Sek at the same time. Once more, many of the commanders gently
How do I do this?
disagreed with the War Master, and he, once more, told them to shut the hell up and follow him. Once more, Makaroth's strength did not lie in diplomacy. But his strategy proved successful yet again. With the breakage of the Moorland front, the Gaur's forces were clearly reeling, and Makaroth had no intention to let him gather himself again. For the next 4 years, he launched blistering attacks upon the Anarch's forces, driving them back before they could fully re-establish themselves anywhere, winning several relatively cheap victories. For a moment there, as the Crusade hammered into the Carcharodon cluster, it appeared as if Makaroth's bold gamble might finally have routed the Gaur completely, and might see the Chaos forces split asunder, with the Gaur's troops pushed back into the Sanguinary Worlds, and Anaquinar Sec cut off from the Anarch. But in 779, Makaroth's plan began to collapse. The pace of offensive operations had been slackening for quite some time, as the Second Front was simply just not able to keep up with the War Master's increasing demands for their occupation of the worlds that he had taken over, forcing him to relegate more troops to hold the ground he had gained. Furthermore, the enemy's resistance was also growing stiffer, and the area in the Carcharodon cluster was growing unstable. Warp routes were shifting, transportations of troops were slowing, until eventually a major warp storm broke out in the region. For nearly a full 6 months, the Imperial Crusade was all but paralyzed, with only a single battle group under the command of Marshal Aldo able to move relatively freely, as it was free of the main warp storm interference. The Marshal swiftly decided to not continue the offensive because he would be horrifyingly outnumbered and crushed almost immediately. Thus, for half a year, the Crusade achieved nothing, whilst the Gaur fortified his position. There were a lot of suspicions around that time that the warp storm itself had been created by some arch-enemy mischief, but it is always difficult to tell with these things. As the Crusade was beginning to approach the Sanguinary Worlds part of the Badab Worlds, well, weird shit was growing even more frequent, and this might simply have been a freak warp storm. Regardless of its true nature, the fact remained that Makaroth's assault had been halted, and the enemy given time to fortify their positions. A fact that Makaroth soon realized, as whilst he had managed to cut through pretty much all of the Carcharodon cluster, he was now heading into the Erenis group, and was immediately halted upon its borders, with several lengthy and painful wars. Symbolic of this was the conflict fought on Anchises' Bone, which started in 781 and was not resolved until 783. The world was home to several hive structures, possessed in turn of truly vast and enormous subterranean areas. The hives having been built so tall as to sink hundreds of meters into the ground. Protected by the hive structures above as well, there was simply no way to level these structures from orbit, meaning that each and every one of them had to be taken by ground assault. The enemy delving deeper and deeper into the structures, laying traps and ambushes as they went, grinding through Imperial Guard regiments at a frightening pace. By the time the conflict could finally be brought to a successful conclusion, the Gaurite forces had largely rallied, and were now beginning to launch counterattacks against the Crusade forces, on worlds such as Tigris and Gilbertus. Makaroth now had to come face to face with the fact that his rapid assault intended to keep the Gaur off balance and deny him the opportunity to recover had failed, and that he now was going to have to yet again hammer his way through another Moorland. And he really didn't have the forces necessary for this. Despite the Corward assault, the Second Front having already been stripped of the majority of their experienced regiments, and itself now struggling to keep up and maintain the war against Anaquanar Sec, there simply wasn't enough heft behind the War Master's swing against the Gaur's entrenched positions. He needed a lot more men, but he had nowhere to take them from. Any further weakening of the Second Front was likely to lead to a collapse. The Kulan system, upon which he had drawn so often in the past, had already suffered rebellions due to the large demands placed upon it by the Imperial Crusade. And the High Lords of Terra, once so supportive of the Crusade's efforts, they had grown well and truly tired of the slow progress. Desperate for some way to reinvigorate his forward momentum, the War Master elected to attempt the creation of a third front, sectioning off segments of his own forces and the Corward assault forces to create a third prong of attack. This was launched against Anaquanar Sec in 782, and met with some initial success under the command of Marshal Aldo. However, this initial success proved to have been a trap led by the Anarch. Having expected War Master Makaroth to try something bold and aggressive, as he had on almost all occasions done so far, the Anarch had allowed himself to appear vulnerable, pulling back his troops, ceding terrain and victories to the invading Crusade forces, only to slam shut around them like a bear trap, cutting off Marshal Aldo's troops, his Imperial Navy elements, and his Guard forces trapped on worlds long since surrounded by the Anarch, who then ground down the entire Third Front and completely obliterated it in 783. This was one of Makaroth's lowest ebbs in the entirety of the Crusade, and saw a rare moment of self-doubt come across Makaroth. The man who had always aggressively pushed forward in the face of any opposition, even from his own generals, now began to wonder if perhaps they had been right all along. He even considered breaking off the primary assault entirely, leaving behind garrison forces to hold the ground he had seized, and instead focus in on what his generals had claimed to be the lesser threat, Anaquanar Sec, to destroy him before turning with full force against the Gaur. However, for better or worse, a breakthrough then happened. Tigris, another world that had been contested now for several years, fell to the forces of Marshal Uriens, who, seeing an opportunity, immediately pushed onwards to the world of Kilgrave, reaching it in 784. This appeared to perhaps be a chink in the Gaur's armor, a promised second breakthrough, causing Makaroth to resolve not to cancel the offensive, and rather push the primary front onwards even harder. Though with the destruction of the tertiary front, he recognized that he wouldn't have any additional forces to call upon. He was running out of men as it was, and with the enormous war tithes he had already levied on the Sabbat worlds, it would take a very long time before substantial reinforcements could be created. And Makaroth was not at all sure that time was a resource he possessed. With the looming threat of the Gaur and Anaquanar Sec perhaps joining back up together and carrying out joint operations, the likes of which had once almost decapitated the Crusade, still looming, Makaroth needed and wanted to do something bold, something decisive. that even if it could not lead to the defeat of one of the two, could at the very least drive a thorough wedge in between them to cut out any chance of such a cooperative agreement being reached. As he did correctly so surmise that with the rising power of Anaquanar Sec, friction was likely to have started between Sec and the Gaul, as Chaos Warlords of comparable power tend to not play very well with one another. However, the fact also remained that it had been Sec who had actively submitted himself to the Gaul, specifically and assumedly to avoid a major break that might endanger the Chaos Forces' position. It seemed extremely unlikely that Sec would make such a basic mistake as to attack the Gaur before he was ready, before he was absolutely assured that the Imperial Crusade could be defeated just with Sec's own forces, or that he knew that he could coup the Gaur's own troops to his side. That is, unless Sec believed that he was under assault first. Makarov had no real idea of how such a thing might be carried out until an intriguing plan came across his desk, suggested by Lord Militant Sibon of the Corward Front. The report mentioned a certain Colonel Commissar that the War Master had taken a personal interest in, and even undercut at one previous point. It mentioned a Sons of Sec and previous Blood Pact turncoat that was willing to give up the position of several hyper-secret weapons laboratories and other areas of tremendous import to Anaquanar Sec. Holdings that the Imperium shouldn't know about, and that Sec would not have any reason to believe that the Imperium would know about either. They were also all lying deep within Chaos-held territories, meaning that if somebody did suddenly arrive there with hostile intent, it was yet again unlikely for these to be Imperial forces. But now that the Imperium knew of their location, the plan had been made out, and Lord Militant Sibon took a great deal of credit for its creation and its pushing at Imperial High Command. 28 targets would be located and raided by Imperial forces, in essence on a one-way trip, as they couldn't send all that many men, nor that many ships. Yet they still needed sufficient martial might to overcome what was likely to be heavily defended facilities. This was the only reason why the Lord Militant didn't try his hand at this operation by himself. As Sibon himself said later on, if the operation had failed, it wouldn't really have been a significant failure to the Imperium. 28 minor raids was a pretty low-level expenditure, really. Yet if the operation succeeded, the operation might very well claim credit for unsticking the entire crusade. Sibon would have loved to have been solely responsible for that. However, he needed Makaroth's approval because he needed his stamp on the paperwork. He needed, literally, his actual approval more so than his go-ahead. Because if Sibon could bring an operation backed by the War Master himself, along with him and other Lord Militants, he might just be able to marshal the kind of low-weight, high-effect military aid that such an operation required. Namely, of course, the Adeptus Astartes. It should, however, also be stressed that Sibon wasn't in this purely for his own self-aggrandizement. If it wasn't for his willingness to share credit, to extend a hand in cooperation with the War Master, whom he had vehemently disagreed with on many an occasion, and his willingness even to humiliate himself in front of the Space Marines to make Gaunt look better. Well, without Sibon, the mission may very well have been doomed before it even began. And even with his aid, it was certainly a long shot. Not just because, well, he had to send 28 raids deep into enemy lines, but also due to the nature of the targets, as the majority of them were found within an area of space known as Salvation's Reach, a truly enormous mineral and asteroid minefield, filled with spinning rocks, with debris, with remnants of ships, remnants of asteroids, planets, and uncountable other things that frankly defied easy classification, to the point that the Imperium wasn't really entirely sure what Salvation Reach was even made up of, but there was a lot of rocks in there, and there are a lot of places to hide major enemy weapons programs, which was exactly what the primary target to be attacked by the Tarnith First and Only was. A very large, hulking habitat that had originally been created and ran by Heritor Asphodel, the master of the previous Archon's weapons program. Under Nadzibar, the Heritor Asphodel had been working on all manners of fiendish things at this program, including traditional weapons of mass destruction and things of more esoteric and magical natures. Most of this information would be largely useless to the Imperium, really, or it would simply be too scared to try and use most of it. But denying it to the enemy was valuable enough in and of itself. Furthermore, the aim was, yet again, to sow discord between Anakwana Sek and the Archon Gaur. To do this, the 28 raids would be bringing with them clues to dump off in the area, pieces of blood-packed equipment, and more importantly, signals. The Imperium had painstakingly, with the help of Mabon, recreated blood-packed battle chatter, or at the very least something that sounded so close to it that none were particularly likely to understand the subtle differences or the nuances. At the very least, not Anakwana Sek. For all intents and purposes, after the Imperial raid had left their burning and destroyed target, it should, from signal intelligence's perspective at least, appear as if it had been raided by the Blood Pact. Assuming the installations could actually be destroyed in the first place, of course. These were massive installations, and again, due to secrecy, only a very small force could actually be dispatched. This is the part where the Space Marines come in, as no mere mortal force, no matter how elite or well trained, could pack the kind of power per pound ratio that the Adeptus Astartes could. Though some reinforcements of a more mortal nature would also be forthcoming. The Imperial Crusade had had a very hard time untangling its massive logistical nightmare of reinforcements over the last few years, with some companies and formations having been stuck in transit for years, bumping back and forth between fleets here, worlds there, reserve duty here, and the Tarnith, First and Only, surprisingly, was not an exception to this, as it actually had reinforcements en route for quite some time. Not Tarnith reinforcements, of course. That would have been unusual. No, Belladon and Verghast reinforcements. See, during the brief period of time when the Tarnith First and Only was joined with the Belladon and became the 81st First, the commander realized that meshing together such vastly different forces would be a challenge. And so he had sent a special request through the Minotaurum and back to Belladon for very specific reinforcements. A single company of additional Belladon troopers, and this request had been granted. They were intended to have arrived long before the 81st First became Tarnith First and Only again, after the war on Anachronon Sextus, but again, due to logistical complications, this did not happen. Gaunt, of course, was overjoyed to be receiving new men, but perhaps not the kind he was expecting, as the Belladon reinforcements were a marching band. Complete with instruments and a cybernetic eagle mascot. Now, this made sense for the 81st First. A nice bunch of musicians, something for the regiment to take a bit of pride in, something to cheer on and unify around, right? Music, parties, livening up things and all that. But for the Tarnith First and Only, about to get sent on what was in all due likelihood a suicide mission, well, the drum and fife section was not quite as welcome. Fortunately, the Verghastites reinforcements were quite different. 6 companies, led by a major by the name of Pasha Petrushevska. These fighting men and women would no doubt be quite welcome in the Tarnith First and Only. Slightly less welcome was Colonel Commissar Gaunt's son. Oh, alrighty then. See, Colonel Commissar Gaunt has a little bit of a James Bond style thing to him, as he has attempted with relatively high success rates, honestly, to sneak his way into the pants of most attractive females that have crossed his path. Indeed, he is even right now attempting to get in the pants of his regiment's soon-to-be chief surgeon, as the Tarnith's original surgeon, Dorden, had recently been diagnosed with severe cancer and was probably on his last leg. I don't know how wise it is to bang your sole remaining high-level qualified surgeon, but details. Anyways, on the war on Verghast for Vervonhive, he had managed to infiltrate the panties of a high-born lady, who had now apparently produced a son, an heir. He had been dispatched to Colonel Commissar Gaunt's side, so that his dad's illustrious position as the people's hero would hopefully rub off a little bit on him, and for him to learn something from his father, the great war hero. Gaunt recognized this for what it was, a political maneuver. Association with the people's hero would be an invaluable asset to any member of Verghastite's upper society. To be able to draw upon a blood connection as well would be doubly so important. There were also other reasons, which we'll get into later, as I think we're going to have a talk about the final installment of the Gaunt's Ghost series, but we'll keep that separate for now. So, Meritus Felix Chas is Colonel Commissar Ibrahim Gaunt's son, and he's coming along for the suicide mission. Anywho, the Tarnith First and Only were adequately briefed of the task ahead of them. They were given opportunities to train and would be given further opportunities to do so on the journey towards their target in Salvation's Reach. They would also be given access to a specialized piece of equipment or two to effect their assault upon the hyper-secret weapons program. And they would be given a ship, the Highness Sir Armaduke. Once a very, very impressive warship that had fallen upon hard times. She had been severely damaged, damn near outright crippled, in fact, during the Kulan Wars, and had spent the last 27 years in a void dock, having repairs, extensive repairs, carried out on her. But the ship really was too far gone. The damage sat too deep. Too many stress fractures, too much deep-seated damage, and too much hurt as well to the ship's machine spirit. Sir Armaduke would never return to full combat-capable status ever again. And so, as it was easily expendable, it was the perfect choice for this particular mission. She was not really expected to be able to stand up to much that she might face in the void, but she would be an excellent transport, and if nothing else, her significant outward appearance, at least, might scare off the occasional small-scale Chaos Raider. Now, the group escorting the Sir Armaduke ran into significantly more than that, and there was some drama on the way, but to concern ourselves more directly with the operation at hand, the secret weapons laboratory was assumed to be too heavily guarded for any single force to take over. Even if enough ships could be sent without compromising security, it would likely be a long-term operation, weeks or possibly even months, before a facility of that size could be taken. Therefore, instead, the Tarnith had planned out a different approach. A combined stealth infiltration and loud and shouty boom boom bang bang distraction, where the Space Marines accompanying the Tarnith would head in through the front door, mainline hangars supported by Tarnith infantry. They would draw all the attention they conceivably could to themselves by burning, blasting, exploding, crushing, and killing anything and everything in front of them, whilst the Tarnith would provide rearguard support and hopefully a means of extraction later on. The distraction would be led by Major Gol Collier, whereas Ibrahim Gaunt would lead the main effort. This would be a stealth infiltration, where Sir Armaduke would nuzzle up against the armored hull of the enemy station and use Hades' breaching drills to dig their way through the outer shell. This was likely to be meters and meters thick, and a significant undertaking in its own right, but it was extraordinarily unlikely that the enemy would be able, willing, or even bothered to monitor the entirety of the vast complex's outer areas. There would be huge sections that would simply have been abandoned. Or at least that was the information that the Imperials had received from Mabon Etogaur. And considering that yet further attempts on his life had been carried out even after the one on Balhut, it seemed as if his information was probably pretty on point. There had even been attempts on his life in transit to the enemy's research station, so he clearly knew something important. These areas, however, were likely to be guarded by something else. Either automated sentries or simply just absolutely ridiculous assloads of traps. Now honestly, even this feels like major high-level paranoia, as there were kilometers of traps inside of this damn thing, including entire hallways filled with massive explosives. It seems to me that this would be a rather silly thing, honestly. I mean, imagine if one of the countless stray giant rocks surrounding the station on all sides in Salvation Reach got pushed out of orbit, or simply emerged from the other side of the damn space area and hammered in to the research station. Okay, what are they gonna do if this happens to be in an area that is booby-trapped to shit and beyond? Most of which were mechanical booby traps, by the by, so they couldn't simply just, call in a code and disable them. The only way to get maintenance crews to the affected areas would be for the Chaos Forces themselves to go through and disable kilometers of their own traps to carry out emergency repairs, or simply just abandon the entire sector, I suppose. Seems a bit overdone, in my opinion, but it did prove at least partially successful, as despite the Tarnith First and Only's extensive preparations and expertise, they did set off at least one of these major traps before breaking into the deeper interior recesses of the station. Also, this is a personal inquisitorial gripe, but there is one trap that is a anti-tank trap that is set off by a human. Now, I don't know if you have a deep understanding of anti-tank mines, but very rarely are they manufactured to be so sensitive as to allow a human to set them off, because that would somewhat defeat the entire point of being an anti-tank mine. But hey, details. Oh, and there's a scene in this where Ludd, my favorite character, yells at Space Marines, which I tremendously enjoyed. Oh, and okay. I kind of wish that Gaunt's Ghost had ended on this book, and we'll get to that a bit later again, the reason for it, but another one of my favorite characters to break my inquisitorial persona here for a moment is Mert. Now, Mert is an individual who had everything. He was a scout sniper with Tarnith First and Only. The best of the best. He was handsome, cocky, and confident. His life was as good as his life could ever get, and then half of his face was blown off. Now that's a bad day in and of itself, but worse still was the fact that he was then fitted with an extremely crude augmetic replacement. That alone wouldn't be so bad. Sure, he was never going to be quite so handsome again, but the augmetic replacement was of such low quality that it messed up his speech, causing him constantly to gnaw out his word and stutter. This too wouldn't be that big of a deal if it weren't for the fact that this was caused by a constant electrical misfiring within the jaw. This meant that every time he tried to fire a rifle, this guy having once been one of the best marksmen in the entirety of the Tarnith First and Only, his jaw would tighten up, misfire, and jerk his shoulder and face around, screwing up his aim. Mert's story is a long and sad one throughout the entirety of the book series, and him here now finally receiving a glorious send-off, covering the backs of the Tarnith as they withdraw with their loot. It was exactly the kind of thing the character needed. Anyways, we're wandering off the topic again. The Tarnith did indeed manage to break into the deeper, darker depths of the experimental weapons facilities, where they laid out yet more evidence that apparently this has been a blood-packed action. They left behind countless pieces of gear, scrap, and other indicators, as well as stealing a lot of very, very important things. War-endingly important things. Now, the Tarnith didn't quite know it at the time. They were mostly grabbing or destroying anything and everything they could, hoping that some of it would be valuable. But Mabon had also guided them towards some more remarkable objects. These were the real final nail in the coffin, the real culmination of the entire mission to drive a wedge in between the Gaur and Sek. And as the Tarnith began withdrawing themselves from the weapons research station and getting as many of their men out as they could, in the face of enormous enemy pursuit, as the entire station was now well and truly aware of what was going on and were rushing towards the Tarith in overwhelmingly massive numbers. They blew the connections to the research station and got the hell out of there as quickly as the Armaduke's engines could push them. Nitanith's casualties had been severe, but the fallout of the operation was far more enormous. Now, unfortunately, the conquering heroes never returned to the Imperial Crusade. Well, somewhat, anyways. And as the Sir Armaduke was assumed to have been lost with all hands, the Tarith were posthumously awarded medals, honors, and Gaunt himself was given the rank of Lord Militant, having presumably been destroyed during the exit from the station, picked off by some enemy patrol or warship, or simply by warp malfunction. Now, we'll get back to that again on another time, as our timeline is getting awfully screwed up right now. But the purpose of the infiltration efforts and the raids was to get the Anarch and the Gaur fighting, and that succeeded. The exact extent of the disagreement that broke out between the two is very difficult to fully and accurately estimate, as obviously it was combat between two Chaos forces, far outside of any prying eyes. However, there were several indicators that mass combat had indeed broken out between the two. Entire planets were found with signs of vast military clashes, with no Imperial forces ever having been present. The debris of titanic real space void battles were also found, and signals trafficked from within Chaos-held space became disjointed, and whatever communication had been going on between the two parties, already strained no doubt, had seemingly almost completely broken down by this point. In all due likelihood, Anaquinar Sek, who unquestionably believed himself to be the superior candidate for command over the entirety of the Chaos host, had long been chafing at being the Gaur's simple general, his dog on a leash. And to be fair, Sek was the superior commander. He had the greater tactical acumen, a far superior grasp of strategic planning. He was a brilliant man by comparison, no doubt about it, and would almost certainly have done far better than the Gaur. However, Sek had feared the Blood Pact, and had recognized the fact that if he had turned on the Gaur initially, the entirety of the Chaos cause in the Savat worlds would have crumbled, as Anaquinar's increasingly superior numbers would not have been enough to secure a rapid victory over the Gaur's fanatically loyal elites, thus exhausting both of their resources in the face of ever-increasingly determined Imperial offensives. But as much as Sek knew this on an intellectual level, it is very, very difficult indeed to subordinate yourself to someone you view, quite reasonably so, to be your own inferior. And now it seemed as if the Gaur had made the first move, as if he had started the war, and Sek therefore had to defend himself. He was under attack. His position within the Chaos forces was now being questioned. Even if he realized that this was somehow an Imperial setup, so long as everybody else under his command didn't believe that, he had to respond, or he would look weak. And the moment Sek started lashing out, the Gaur, who was a significantly less subtle individual, would of course respond in kind or greater, forcing Sek to respond again, which would cause the Gaur to respond, and so on and so on. Until a full-scale war was raging between the two Chaos Warlords, and Makaroth's Imperial Crusade could finally get itself unstuck once more. It had been a risky operation, and a costly one, but it had been successful. Now it was up to Makaroth to make the most of the opportunity he had been given. As for Gaunt and the rest of them, well, we will be getting back to them too soon. But that, we'll have to wait until the next episode. Till then, I have been Arch. Thank you all very much for listening, and I hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.
It's